It's the GTN Show. Welcome. This week, we'll be taking a look through the newly released World Triathlon rules, some of which might be less welcome than others. A revision of water quality standards being one of those. And no surprises, we have another announcement from the PTO relating to the T100. Or should I say, the race to Qatar. Yeah, there's a bit of a clue in the name on that one. All that, plus our newly updated Tri-Spy feature, another running world record, and some unusual honesty from an Ironman world champion. And now time for Reacts, things that we, or should I say I, have spotted online this week. And the first one comes from Sam Laidlow. And in his own words, it's an unusually honest post. It's quite raw. He's just talking to camera. Take a look.
Never do this kind of but yeah, I know a lot of you follow my content and stuff, and that's great. I'm really grateful for it. This last month and a bit has been flipping terrible. Some illnesses and some health issues. It's just been really bad start to the year, and hopefully we can turn it around.
If you haven't got time to watch all of that, he's basically saying that he hasn't felt himself since Kona. Obviously, we saw it all was going rather well until it wasn't back in Kona, and he's just not really recovered, doesn't quite know what's happening with his body. And on this particular post, he was out for a run. He says he's basically got 5 minutes into it and has to walk. He's also struggling to do more than 5 minutes cycling and swimming. And only a few weeks ago, we talked about his pretty stacked programme, the fact that he's got Ironman South Africa just at the end of March, straight away followed by the race in Abu Dhabi. Starting to wonder whether he might have to change his schedule. But I mean, frustrating for him as a pro, but also, for everybody wanting to see him back to top form. So fingers crossed that Sam can get to the bottom of what exactly is going on and hopefully return to full fitness soon, because we are definitely excited to see him race again. We have this next post from Dave Ellis, also one from the Athlete of the Year. So the athletes basically vote who they thought within Great Britain deserved to take this award. So it's kind of one that's really, I think, quite special to the athletes to be voted by your fellow competitors, so to speak. Now, Dave Ellis, along with his guide Luke Pollard, won the gold medal in Paris for the visually impaired category. And I think it was an extra special moment for them because, I don't know if you remember, back in Tokyo, they're chain jammed on their tandem bicycle, and being the favourites going into that, they basically threw away their opportunity to fight for that gold medal. Well, they absolutely made up for it this year, became world champions, European champions and Paralympic champions. And Dave says here that it's so nice that people have recognised us in this way. The shortlist had some great athletes on there, and even just to make that nomination list was unbelievable. I'm blown away to actually win the award. And anyone who knows Dave knows he is very modest and humble. So I think that'll be very well deserved. Indeed. Moving on, our last piece from Reacts is a world record. I know we often do feel like we have lots of world records on the show. This one is 100% legit. It's the new 48-hour treadmill world record. It's one that I imagine not too many people go and attempt, but it is incredibly impressive. And it's been taken by Sophie Power, the lady who heads up She Races. You might have heard of them. They're a charity who are trying to get more women into running and make equality in running events. But also, Sophie is a very incredibly accomplished ultra runner with several world records to her name. Now, she decided to give this 48-hour world record an attempt at the National Running Show in Birmingham in the UK. She started at 2:30 on the Friday afternoon and went through until Sunday at the same time, carrying on whilst the show was closed during the night and the expo, still running on the same treadmill. Now, her target was 340.36 kilometres. That was the previous world record. And she actually surpassed that by Sunday morning and went on to clock 365 kilometres, so 25k further than that. She did admit that it was mentally one of the most difficult things she's done because there was just no outdoor stimulation, and I just can't fathom it. I mean, whilst she was doing that, I was running the 40-kilometre distance of the Arc of Attrition outside with beautiful sea views, and I found that really hard, and I was running for only just over 4 hours. I can't fathom 48 hours looking at the same thing. Maybe you have a few people coming and going, but she was most certainly rewarded with a huge crowd that built up by the Sunday, and hopefully it's recovering well. But impressive stuff, Sophie. And now on to Tri News. And World Triathlon have just released their latest set of rules, which will come into effect from the 27th of February this year. Now, all rule updates will apply to the elites, and some of these are going to go across the board to age groupers as well. So you might want to listen up. Now, a few of the significant elite-only rule changes include a change in the order for the mixed relay, going back to being women, men, as per the previous Olympic cycle that we saw going into Tokyo. Obviously, they flipped it for Paris, and then they're flipping it back again. They've also tightened the rules around swimming behaviour. Now, this probably doesn't sound like a surprise, but you're not allowed to pull or push or gain forward momentum from an inanimate object. I mean, this could have been highlighted after some rather close swimming to the barges in the River Seine that we saw during the Olympics, and there was a few questions of whether they were used to aid any sort of forward momentum. But you're also having fingernails and toenails going to be checked. They must be short. No jewellery is permitted, and watches are not allowed. But don't panic. These are the elite rules. So age groupers, you are still going to be allowed to wear your watch, and the elites can with the discretion of the referee. So that will be a rule we might see sort of, I guess, that's going to be flexible. We've also got new graded set of penalties around drafting being introduced, which I think is quite a sensible change. So long distance is going to be reduced to 3-minute penalty for drafting, middle distance down to now 2 minutes, standard reduced to 1, and then sprint distance just 30 seconds. So hopefully this will just sort of make those incidences when it is truly a mistake not so much of a damage to your race, and you can still be competitive in that. So it'll be interesting to see, and you are going to have to, I guess, know your rules with all these changes. But one rule change that might worry a few of you involves the water quality. It is being what they call relaxed. So the levels of enterococci and E. coli must now just reach the standard of good as opposed to excellent, which understandably might give a few people a fear. Now, alongside this, the decision to cancel a swim is going to involve a medical committee representative, a medical delegate, and an LOC medical director. So instead of previously it being a single person, it is now 3 of them that will make that call. And it might be no surprise to see these changes after all that turmoil that we saw in Paris with the triathlon almost getting cancelled, and then it was being postponed due to the E. coli levels in the River Seine. Now, take from this what you will, whether it's meaning that more swims will go ahead, or does it mean that swims will be less safe? I don't know. So the levels, if you want the numbers, for sea and transition water are rising from 100 to 200 mil for enterococci, and from 250 mil to 500 mil for E. coli. And now inland water sounds even worse, or whichever way you want to look at it, not so good. It's going up to 400 mil for enterococci and 1,000 mil for E. coli. So yeah, you might be hoping your swim's cancelled if it's somewhere that's a bit on borderline, but that'll be your decision whether you do the swim or not. But at least, I guess, they are still sticking within what they presume is safe. Good would be in theory safe, so we'll hopefully see more swims go ahead and we'll still all be healthy at the end of it. Fingers crossed. There are a few more rules aimed at the elites, but for the full list, I'd suggest checking out the World Triathlon website. And before you do any race, you do need to read the rules, know them, and maybe a little bit more so this year after that sort of post-Olympic cycle, things do change a little bit. And World Triathlon have been pretty busy because they have also just announced revised regulations for transgender athletes. They've retained that 4-year period for the transgender female athletes to be eligible for full participation in the elite category, but it has made modifications to allow these athletes to still participate throughout that period, but within the new open category. Now, those transgender women will be required to participate in research during the final 3 years, as well as still having a written declaration, and they've still got to hit those testosterone levels. So it's got to be below 2.5 nanomoles per litre for that entire 4 years. As for the male transgender athletes, well, they can compete in the elite male category with solely a signed declaration of their identity. So I guess that part has become a little bit more straightforward. Well, our final piece of Tri News comes from the PTO, who basically keep us talking in this show, don't they? Just after Mark and James filmed the show last week, we then saw this announcement by the PTO. The T100 World Triathlon Tour has its finale, and it is heading to Qatar. The World Championships will now be known as the Qatar T100 World Triathlon Championships, and this final will be held in Doha this December, the 11th to 13th, and is going to be there for a total of 5 years. Well, that brings the T100 Tour now to 9 confirmed races, which will now be referred to as the T100 Race to Qatar, with the contracted pros having to race 4 of the T100 events plus the Qatar World Championships. Well, I think that might be all the announcements that we are expecting from the PTO, but I'm not going to confirm that until next week. On to What the Tech, and we don't have our tech specialist, Mark, here. I'm afraid, so you're going to have to put up with me. We have just one piece of tech news this week. And triathlon bike brand Quintana Roo do unsurprisingly make road bikes as well, and they have just released their latest version, the Service Course, which they claim to be their fastest ever UCI legal road bike. Now, this starts at a price tag of $3,575 with a 12-speed Shimano 105 Di2 group set, or you can move up to the 5,000 option with Shimano Ultegra Di2 and MV45 foundation carbon wheels, or if you want to go to the top end, for just over £9,000, you can have the SRAM Red Axis group set, Zip 454 NSW wheels and an integrated MV cockpit. Well, with their last road bike update coming back in 2021 with the SR5, it would be expected to see some significant improvements. Now, the main USP Quintana Roo seem to be pushing, along with the obviously large aero factor, is the options for your build. So you've got a choice of group set, wheel set, paint, crank length, and bar width customizations. On top of this, it's apparently 3.6 watts quicker in all conditions. I'm not sure what conditions they've tested in, but it sounds like it's been pretty comprehensively tested. Now, as expected, a lot of their R&D comes across from the work that they do on their tri-bikes. Now, they claim that the decades of innovation and success in the no-holds-barred world has managed to apply the expertise and has learned to craft a bike that can compete against the world's best race bikes. They say we also used our experience designing the best handling triathlon bikes to perfect the geometry and tuned in to suit a wider modern tyre. So it's quite interesting seeing bikes sort of using triathlon to come back into road for a triathlon bike brand. Interesting piece. Okay, we are now on to our new version of Tri-Spy. And I must admit, I was enjoying reading your comments on the suggestions of this one. So we are now using bike courses or race courses and just giving you the outline. And you guys are good at this, or maybe we were just a little bit too easy last week. So we had this, which, I mean, I must admit, I've not really studied many triathlon course maps. So I wasn't quite sure, but it seems like there was a few sort of common themes of those of you who did get it wrong. So we had St. George, we had Ironman World Championship course in Nice, someone else here, John Kepco 9217, I think I spy course Ironman Nice. We've got Antonio Jimenez, Nice bike course. I was about to say nice bike course. I mean, it is a nice bike course, but it isn't the Nice bike course. It says hopefully riding it in a few months. Well, you won't be riding that one because in fact, it is the iconic course of Challenge Roth. So quite a few of you got the right answer. Luke Stazio, says Challenge Roth. I heard iconic, so I just had to go with it. I mean, if you're guessing, that's a pretty good guess, isn't it? Ivan Nano says Challenge Roth. I always looked at the layout thinking it was a bird flying. Just use some imagination. I mean, the fact that you're spending time looking at the layout, I like that. That's I mean, maybe that's one way to memorize your course before your race. Glastos, definitely Challenge Roth. Love that course. I mean, we had loads of you. Someone out, Tor Boehm, will never forget the epic bike course. Roth, of course. Soverell says Challenge Roth. I love the new Tri-Spy question format. Oh, thank you. I mean, I'm just going to say I haven't ridden the bike course. I've been around it to sort of try and watch Mark after I did the swim. So that's my my get at. But that did seem a little bit too easy for a few of you. So we are going tougher this week. Now take a look at this one. And you might be slightly confused by the fact that it doesn't loop back around. That is because it's a point to point. I mean, that's the only clue I'm giving you, which is kind of already there. So good luck. Let us know what you think. And don't be afraid, we won't name and shame wrong answers. We just welcome all answers here. Now, I'm not sure I can do this one on my own. Here we go. Say what? Oh, that's cringe. Right, we are cracking on with our final segment, and we've had loads of comments on the show last week that Mark and James talked about the 10-minute triathlon, and I just picked out a few that I thought were, that I guess I just related to, and I've gone for the ones that are positive for it, because I think maybe that's what I'm quite keen on. Maybe that's because of my lack of fitness right now. But we've got Mike Wood 9284 saying, if you are a competitive swimmer competing in open meets and any galas, you might only swim for around 5 to 10 minutes depending on what events you swim. Sometimes way less than that, maybe 20 odd seconds for 50 free. Now that really rings cool, because my parents used to get very frustrated coming to a swimming gala to watch me, and I do remember there was a race when I had just a 50 metre freestyle and my parents missed my race. They were sat in the stands, but they didn't know they missed my heat, and that was those 30 seconds or however long it took me, just gone, all that time driving, sitting in a hot swimming pool, and they missed it. So yeah, I mean, at least 10 minutes in that sense seems quite long, doesn't it, for a triathlon? We've got David Stark 8648. I might be doing another indoor triathlon in a few weeks. Instead of a fixed distance, it's fixed time, so 15 minutes each for the swim, so in a pool, a bike, which is stationary, and then the run on an indoor track, and you get points for distance travelled. I mean, that's quite a unique concept. Well, I like the idea of that one. And we've got Angry Miko says, sounds like it'd be fun to watch on TV, but for me, it takes 10 minutes to get my running socks on at T2, and I bet you there's a lot of people that could relate to that. That is the only thing about the 10-minute triathlon that gives me shivers. You would just have to forfeit socks, and I've not come from short course racing, and the thought of running without socks, whatever GCN might think, it doesn't sit comfortably with me. But we do love your comments on all of our videos, and I must admit, I have just completed the Arc of Attrition race last week, and you might have spotted a video which went out on Sunday, and I have really enjoyed reading all of your comments on that, so thank you so much. I've hopefully managed to reply to everybody on there, and just generally we love the input from you guys, the audience. And talking of which, we are getting so close to the massive milestone of 1 million subscribers. In fact, by the time this goes out, we might have even hit it, because when I looked just before we started filming, we were on 999. So yeah, just a few more clicks on that subscribe button and we'll be celebrating 1 million with you. So pretty sure we will be by next week. But if you're not yet a subscriber, you know what to do. And if you are looking for something to watch, well, you could check out that Arc of Attrition video if you've not seen it. And the boys, if you're wondering where they are this week, they are on holiday in Lanzarote. I'm joking. They are out there working very hard, making some great content, including a race against the pros up the Tabiesco hill climb. I'm quite glad I'm still back here.